Well, I'll let you take over here, Alan, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Looks like we got a couple people. Okay, let's call this to order. And would you take roll?
Yes, sir. Jeff Lemine,
Here.
Doug Schnuck,
Here.
Doug Hubble,
Here.
Paul Miller, Neil Carlson.
Here.
All board members are present, we have a quorum.
All right. So everybody that was hanging out on the Zoom call waiting for us, we had some technical problems here. Apologize for that. First business order item is the previous meeting notes from last month. You guys have a copy here with highlighted changes that I included. Are you comfortable with those comments?
Anyone, you recording this?
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay.
As presented.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That would be 5 of us, Dave.
Okay.
Okay, so new business. We had the appeal 202000002 for the property about the air admittance valves. Jason went out and visited looked at the site 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then reported back that based on the historic content of the house and trying to get vents from the 3 locations, it's going to be very difficult and costly and disturb the historic value of the house doing such. So do you guys have any further thought on approving the air admittance valves? We need to officially address that.
Right, and that's gonna happen, I mean, we had emails
Yeah.
from folks.
I
just-
believe everyone responded back that in a
Yeah.
positive manner that air admittance valves were acceptable. We need to make an official motion though, so if one of you guys want to do that.
I'll make a motion that we accept the air maintenance valves.
Okay.
In this situation.
In these 3 locations?
Yes.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5 of us. Okay, so is there any other, I don't have an agenda with me, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm shooting from the hip.
Got it right here, sorry.
Okay.
Thought you put something on it.
Thank you. So we went through the old business, the appeal. The next item, if we don't have any other new business, is the discussion about the policy for excavators to install service extensions. Fair? Okay. So this says discussion on proposed ordinance, and I think that's probably what has caused a lot of concern here. It's my understanding that history, there was an amendment to the city building regulations made. It has since been repealed. And so we have the city building regulations adopting the 2018 Uniform Plumbing Code with our recommended amendments to that. That is been adopted by the city and that's in force. So there's been conversation and thought about a new amendment to the Topeka Municipal Code to allow excavators to install main extensions. And that is not a fair position from the city's perspective at this point. It's my understanding they're just wanting to develop a policy by which development services and the director can approve this text that we've seen in certain circumstances. Is that fair summary?
That's true.
Okay. So I guess we need to open up conversation. We had last month a policy that was brought forward to us with several different items about how and when they can install, excavators can install water main extensions and sewer extensions. There was a lot of conversation had publicly and in here, and I believe the city has changed that, edited that again. And as far as a copy of that, awesome, thank you. That was issued to most people on the 8th, I think. I saw a couple emails cruise around, right? Oh, no, that's the meeting notes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So has everybody seen a copy of the edits that were sent out on the 8th of January? Okay.
That's the draft.
That's a draft, yes.
You asked me copies of the draft, Dave?
Yes.
Is that the one that has the 6 items?
Yes.
That then, I believe Bruce Pfeiffer responded to all of us and made copies. Here you go. You get Neil. So with that, I guess I'd open it up for comments from people. I see we got, go ahead.
Let me start.
Yeah.
When I wrote that draft, this was just to address excavators that have already done this work before. And they're coming to our community and they're wanting to do their work in our community. So when I wrote this draft, that was my intent, to make sure in step 1 that we identify that this is a large project. And then in the next step, they share where they've done this work at before. Because that was one of the main things they kept saying, that, well, we've done this in other communities. So if you've done it in other communities, provide us with that information so that we can go to those communities and talk to those communities. So I just want to share that when we drafted up this policy, it was the intent on Contractors have done the work before, they've done it in other communities. And then after the meeting that we had the last plumbing meeting we had, there was some concerns about people doing the work not being as, not having the same education or training level as plumbers. So I added some stuff in there to address that issue as well, that they had to have a certain level of training, certain amount of CEUs, those also had to come through. So that's in there. So those are some points that I wanted to point out that are in there. And this is not to bring about something that's new to the contractor, it's just trying to make sure that if this contractor's done this work, they have the trained people to do the work, we can allow them to do the work. So that's what the intent of the policy was. So I just wanted to share that as we start the conversation.
Question. On the, item 6, to do the work,
Yes,
does that mean we're gonna open a new license in the city of Topeka?
I thought about that, I think so. Prometric has a drain layers certification, and it talks about laying, it's the outside pipe, exactly, it's not for plumbers that work on the inside, but for
Does
plumbers,
it cover water mains
I think, yeah, it
and
does.
fire mains?
Yes, it's for pipe layers for what we call a site utility. It's not for the inside of the building.
Any way we can get a copy of what that is?
When you say a copy of the,
Or a website we could look at?
yeah, said Prometric, I'll get the link to you, yeah.
If you could get that,
Yeah.
we can study that.
Yeah.
See what the qualifications are.
Yeah, I can get that. But I don't know if we go with this policy, that wouldn't be the only,
I know, that was just one thing I wanted to look at.
that wouldn't be the only license that we would accept. That's why it said in there, it says that, you know, they can have, the contractor shall provide verification that the workers doing the work are licensed to do the work. And they have the 12 hours. So I didn't want to put in a specific license, but I know that Prometric has that drain layers, because I looked into it.
So if we're not licensed, they need to have that.
Right. They need to have a certification.
So do each of the excavators that want to do this have that certification?
I don't,
Oh, okay.
And this is just the Prometric certification.
yes,
But in other localities, they have a different certification. It wouldn't necessarily be Prometric.
correct.
So I see, Joey, we got you on the Zoom call, Jay Myers, and then an iPad. Do you guys have any comments or thoughts?
It's me, Jason Jones.
Oh, hey, Jason, how you doing?
Okay.
It is.
Happy
Good.
birthday. So Joey.
Yeah, Jeff Myers with the Laborers Local 1290. I mean, I just wanted to chime in that, you know, we have contractors that have been doing the sewer line work and putting stuff up to the building for years. And I just wanted to make sure that our contractors are still able to do the jobs that they've already been doing. So that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's my understanding, and I just want to make this clear, that we are not changing the plumbing code that's adopted by the city. And every job must be installed per the plumbing code. And if that means that Jeff Myers, I think your first name is Jeff, forgive me, if they have been doing the excavation and doing the work underneath the observance of a plumber, licensed plumber, that meets the intent of the city's regulations?
Yeah. That's been the way we've.
And I don't do the work, so is that what's happening? And is that what's always happened with water mains and sewer mains?
Oh, I
On
don't,
private property.
yeah, I'll say loosely, yeah, on private, and then.
We are talking private property only. We're not talking,
And then if it was actually done that way.
but it doesn't have to be done, right? As long as you have a licensed plumber there, it meets the intent of the code. And the development services and regulations.
Yeah, because to do the work, the installation, the code says you have to be a licensed plumber.
Right.
That's what the code says. It doesn't say you can do the work under the supervision of a licensed plumber.
Okay.
The code says you have to be a licensed plumber.
So what we are saying is that I hear from you all is what we've been doing for several years is been in violation of the city municipal code. Is that fair?
I'm not saying that.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm wanting to understand.
Correct. The code also allows not journeymen, but helpers and apprentices to work under direct supervision. So if they are supervised and it's within ratio, they are still meeting the intent in the code and the licensing process. So the lead guy does not have to be in the ditch per se, as long as he's under direct supervision.
Thank you. That's the answer I was looking for.
That's what we've done.
Okay. So the reason for this policy is so in 10 years, when the next Walmart shows up and they want to install 48-inch sewer mains, that you as the director of development services can approve that without going to the city building or city council and getting an amendment made for that project.
If they meet all 6 of these criteria.
Okay. What is the chance that, since the history of this has been such that we've had a city amendment made and then rescinded, what is the chance that when a policy's been written, that city council will go ahead and assume that means that it's acceptable to be an amendment and write a new amendment based on that policy? Is it likely? And is there anything we can do about it if they do? No, right?
Well,
We as a board can.
ultimately, they're the policymakers, so
Right.
they can. But I would certainly hope, historically, they've followed the advice of you who have the expertise.
Development services
Yeah.
and the board.
And the board.
Yep.
So, anything can happen, but I would certainly think, it would come, if they were going to do it, they would come back to this board. But there's no guarantee.
Richard, in your document, you posted numbers for 2021, I believe. Do we have any idea? You said that one project would have met this criteria for this policy for 2021. Do we have any ideas on the number of projects that would have met this policy criteria for 2020?
That actually should be 2020.
Yeah, this was started in 2020. I just cut and pasted. There's no
Okay.
way we issued 1,200
Have you've been
plumbing
really busy?
permits in 21, unless you've been inspecting double time or something.
Well, I feel like it sometimes.
Yeah, no, that, I started this policy last year, and those numbers still say 2021, and it should be 2020. So,
Do you remember what that project was that would have met this criteria? Would have been only Walmart?
it would be only Walmart. That's the only
It'd been-
project.
And that's my primary concern. I mean, the big jobs, I think we've heard from some of the larger companies that, they don't want to deal with the storm and stuff like that. The smaller projects are my primary concern. We don't want to cut the mom and pop shops out.
Yeah, this, once you categorize it to me as a main extension, the mom and pop plumbers wouldn't be in that ball game anyway. You know,
Well,
so,
categorized main extension is that, I've seen, somebody's comments. I can't remember if it's Bruce or
well,
not.
in my mind, and that's in my mind, so I define it. Main extension to me is when you set manholes on private property. When you set-
Okay.
So that's a main extension. That's not, you're not just running pipe on a lot. You
That's
got-
not running sewer and tying it into the main. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, no, it's a major undertaking.
So.
Okay.
Then what is the next definition then for a water main extension versus a water supply? Is it just physical size, or how, I like,
And that's good questions. And when I would be looking at a project, I'd be looking at the total scope of the project. So I'd be looking at the size of the water lines. I'd be looking at seeing if they're setting manholes on the property, how much piping they're setting, all that stuff would come into play. So it wouldn't just be if somebody's building a strip mall out here, you know, and building a shell and running some piping off of it, that's not going to be a main extension. That's not going to be a major project. It's going to be, and if it's going to be the totality of the project. It's not going to be some minor project. Those type of projects, the minor projects, we've never had a problem with. The guys hire plumbers, they get plumbers to do the work, and they're done. It's generally these multi-million-dollar projects that come in here with these high-dollar contractors that want to do their job, get in and get out. So it's generally going to be those type of projects. It's not going to be your everyday. We don't have problems with those. You know, it just doesn't happen. So that's why I'm saying I don't see this being a hindrance to the development community, because it's going to be so few and far between. But I'm not a plumber.
Mhm.
So, but the scale of this, what I'm seeing, and then they have to demonstrate. I think that the criteria, the 6 criteria I have down here, that they have to demonstrate, I don't think they're easily overcome. I don't think they're easily overcome. You know, they gotta tell me where they did the work at. It's gotta be defined. They got it in, especially number 6. I think number 6 is major. Because they can't just come in here with laborers and start doing the work. So I think they're major. I don't think they're light. So they can address those criteria.
My only problem is number 3. I know what you said, but this doesn't necessarily address what you said.
Okay,
It just says commercial industrial.
okay,
And it doesn't talk about broad project. It could be interpreted differently.
okay. I'm not following what you're saying.
Well, I mean, I could do a shopping center.
And that could be
And that's,
considered commercial.
That's commercial.
that's commercial, but it may not be the scope of the project they're talking about. It could be, you know, they need an 8-inch main extension.
Okay, but if they're not setting a manhole on it, then they wouldn't follow this criteria, and you need a plumber.
But it doesn't say they have to have manholes.
I know, that's my decision, that's up to number 1. I make the decision
Okay.
of whether or not,
But what happens when you're not here?
okay,
That's, you know, I understand.
that's
I
fine,
trust your judgment,
that's fine.
but, you know, you're not gonna be here forever.
No, I'm not.
I think that's just a fact.
That's fine, that's a legitimate point.
So did we have any of this was like when Mars was being built? It's gonna be basically,
Now, Mars, we didn't have any problem with this.
you know, or Target or any of those, you know,
Right.
that's what I'm just trying to
There,
say.
there was some noise, there wasn't anything major. I mean,
I mean, my feeling from our first time we discussed this, the split lines and the local excavating contractors wanted to get in on the stuff I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And this is eliminating that, or that your plan is eliminating that. So it doesn't do what Emerson, and those guys wanted. Are they gonna be happy with that?
I sent it to them, I haven't heard from them. I sent it, just like I sent it to all the licensed plumbers, I sent it to all the licensed excavators. And I sent it specifically to the two companies you mentioned. I sent it to them specific individually, so.
I'm just.
No, it's fine.
Kind of being
I
devil's
like,
advocate here.
yeah, we need to be, you need to be.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So, I mean, there is a way, that we can define. It's gonna take a challenging, define what is a main extension. So,
Right.
and then it'll be
Yeah.
defined.
Okay.
That's a
I mean,
good
if we can
point.
do that,
That's a good point.
So I would like to do a little craft into the text, maybe from what I've heard, it makes me feel better that we're not writing a new amendment to the city code. I would like for you to consider, Richard, that this policy may apply to site utilities on special projects. And then we continue on that this is a policy that is based on your consideration of a special project as it rolls in the door. So no one infers it to be code. Because that's what most of the interpretation I've gotten from emails, text, and documents is that the plumbing contractor and laborers have felt that this was rewriting the code so that they wouldn't have to do the work. Fair? And that's not what you're recommending. You're just writing a policy just like the policy of what your inspectors should do when they go and inspect the job. It is a policy for development services. Okay. That makes me feel better, personally,
me too.
because I didn't want to be here every month.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it was, I think a lot of the smaller guys, contractors were concerned that even it, how soon does it get pushed over to residential to where just your excavating contractor can start putting in sewers and stuff. I think that was their big concern too,
And the repairs.
and the repairs. But when it states right here, you know, new,
And the
Who
scope of
makes
the project.
Who makes the decision on when it's a special project?
The director of development
Well, see,
services.
I think those two are conflicting, because he wants me to define what a sewer main extension is, and you said a special project. And a special project takes us back to where I was at, where I was calling it the main extension. I think we need to define the term that this applies to. It needs to have
I agree,
some-
because-
I have a question for you, and it concerns the water main. Will the city water department let that happen? Because most of those water main extensions, the city water department wants to run the main unless the meter is.
That's part of number one. I mentioned that this will go through the city utilities
Okay.
department too.
Okay.
So it won't just be the utilities.
You know,
department.
most of the time the city wants to run their water main where they want it. And they want the meters where, you
where
know,
they want.
where they want it.
Yeah, so this would,
So they would address that?
Yep.
Okay,
That's part of number one.
okay.
So I agree. I have had on all of my comments, what is a main extension, because I can't find that in the International Plumbing Code, the Uniform Plumbing Code, or our definitions within the municipal codes. That would be outstanding and great. I still like starting this policy with this may apply as opposed to this shall apply, because may means that you have the discretion as opposed to overrule this shall. So I like that. My concern from another perspective is when I am buying a piece of property, I assume that it was built and complied with the adopted codes at that when it was constructed. When a owner comes into town, and I use the word special project, they come to you as the director and say, we are going to build this huge facility. We're going to have multiple manholes. We want to do a main extension for the water and fire, and fire and storm and sewer. We would like to do it with excavators instead of plumbers, and it's deemed to be acceptable. When that developer leaves town and somebody else assumes ownership of that building, do they not believe that they bought something that was built per code? Are you following what I'm trying to say?
Why wouldn't it be built per code?
Because they're not installing it per code.
Why
They're
aren't they
installing
installed per code?
because they're not
Yeah,
using the materials and the labors, and that's not necessarily that as adopted by the Uniform Plumbing Code, right?
Yeah, on private property, even though they may not be licensed plumbers, we're inspecting it per our code.
But
And the material will be for.
Per our
Per
code.
code. And that's what you would tell them
Yeah,
up front.
yeah.
okay, so the material can only be used what is adopted by the Uniform Plumbing Code that has been amended by the city council each period. So, because that was one conversation about is, do the materials that are allowed in the city streets and right of ways, do those conform to the UPC? And
No.
I was led to believe that no, there are some
No.
materials they,
Now, my research on that,
Mhm.
the materials that are used that are the UPC approves, they have to be put in per manufacturer's specifications, and they have to be tested by a third party, and then they have to pay UPC to have them put it in their code book. So those are the three things. So one of the issues that we were having with the city, with the utilities and development services is some products are listed that our utilities department was using, which had been tested by a third party and were being installed per the manufacturer's specifications, but they hadn't gotten around to getting involved in paying UPC to put it in their code book. So those two criteria, if they came to me and they said, hey, we want to use this product, I'd ask for the testing requirements, make sure it's tested by a third party. I'd make sure that it's been installed per manufacturer specifications, and if it does that, then I'd allow them to use it.
Well,
Because the third thing is they haven't paid UPC. I have for them to put it in their code.
but their product should be the ASTM number that's approved by the.
Well, that's where the third party testing comes. The third party testing comes in.
The AST number.
Right. It has to be, and it would have to be a legitimate third party testing
Right.
company. It couldn't just be Dave looked at it and said, okay. So,
I have a question. What if that certification and listing that they have doesn't match the minimum requirements that's required by the Uniform Plumbing Code? It's easier to get an easier classification, but if the classification and standards that it's manufactured to doesn't meet the standards that are on par with the Uniform Plumbing Code, it's in fact a subpar material according to the Uniform Plumbing Code. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just like, I guess you're maybe referring to like the new age,
Soil pipe replacement.
yeah, what's the epoxy coated soil pipe, the green stuff? At one time, it met some of the listings, but was not approved by, it didn't have an installation standard, so it was not approved by UPC. I think that's changed now, right? I think they got their listing back.
Also allows us to accept alternate materials also
Yeah.
based, and that's what Richard was touching on just a minute ago.
Just like the air admittance valves, right?
Well, that's different. The air admittance valves need a variance, because they don't meet the definition. They don't meet code. But if code does allow us to accept alternate materials as long as they meet the same intention as the code. And that's in chapter 3, the very first page.
But aren't the air admittance valves listed by UPC?
No, they are not. They do not meet definition for event.
I thought they were listed as a product.
They have an NC or SME listing, but that is not approved product.
But they do not have a UPC listing.
Okay, so thanks for the clarification. That was a concern of mine is what would somebody buy down the road if it didn't comply with the plan? Okay.
You can make a final draft of this for us then.
Yes.
I make a motion that you make a final.
Okay, so let me revisit. Joey, do you have anything to say? I see you've been on here and I don't know if we've got you muted or. He's good. All right. I don't know if that means he wants to speak or he's good, but hey.
At least it's not the middle.
All right, so let's revisit. Let's revisit us as a plumbing board, okay? If you look at our responsibilities, we are to review appeals and licensure. And that's about it. So we don't make policy for the city. We can recommend things, like we review the plumbing code because Development Services asks us to review it and give them their recommendations. We do that. And then if they like them, they take them to legal, and then legal modifies the text, and then Development Services takes it and asks the city council to adopt it. So in this case, I believe what Development Services and Richard would like is for the board to either approve this policy, disapprove it, table it until it's rewritten, until we have the text we want. And that's about it, right?
So that was the motion I made. I wanted him to rewrite and formalize the policy.
Okay.
And then bring it back to us to review and approve this.
Okay.
So, you know, not that you can just maintain policy anyway.
Right.
Right.
But I think that,
And
I
it-
appreciate you asking us for our opinion.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you guys provide a service that we need. He's right, you guys don't make policy, but you have input on the policy. I never want to make or do anything in this environment, in the trades, without having input from the people that are in the trades. Because I know about business, okay? But you guys, you know, you're plumbers. You know way more than me about plumbing stuff. I know enough about plumbing, but I don't know, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I know more about plumbing than you guys. I don't wanna tell you. But when you guys give me input, I have to go to the governing body. I feel comfortable saying, hey, I took this to the plumbers, or I took this to the mechanical guys, I took this to the electrical guys, I took this to the building guys, took this to the design professionals, and this is their recommendation. And so your recommendation goes to me, and I take it to the council. The council is looking for me to provide them answers. But my recommendation is your recommendation. I want you guys to know that my recommendation is your recommendation. And I'm trying to, this process that we're going through right now is important to your profession.
Yes, it is.
So I'm glad you guys are here. I don't want to make or put out any recommendations that we haven't sat down and you guys say, you missed the T there. Where's the I at? Wear me out. I don't have a problem with it. Question me why you didn't define. Why you didn't define it? What's defined it? Go back. What is that? So that way it helps clarify it. Because sometimes, unfortunately, I'm just in a, oh, this sounds good. I'm writing it out, but I don't know what it sounds like until I get it out. So I just want you guys to know your recommendations and what you guys share is important because that's why it's a policy now, because you guys said you didn't want it to be an ordinance.
Right.
I was going to make it an ordinance and took it back and they said, well, yeah, let's make it a policy. So those things are important. So now I'm taking it back, trying to define what a main extension is, because once again, it's clear in my head, but it's not clear. So those things are important. I just want you guys to know. I appreciate you taking the time.
We appreciate you giving us input, because the ordinance that was amended and passed totally just stomped on us. And quite honestly, I was pretty upset by it. And I like what we're doing now.
So I have a question. I guess, I know we kind of touched on it earlier, that item 6 for the CEU. I'd just like to understand, now are those, since we're classified this as plumbing work, we gonna accept just a general plumbing CEU, or is it gotta be related to what, like, for instance, the Prometric, like, does it have to do with CEUs related to what they're doing directly? I just wanna make sure that
So
if
my
we're
question,
allowing 12 hours, I don't want it to be, we sat through a water heater class that's irrelevant and we're counting that as a CEU because it's plumbing.
so my question is, what do you have to take? They should be able to have to take what you have to take.
Yeah. and
You
it
can't
can-
take a
and it
water
can
heating
be-
class.
And it can be general, because really the way we're set up is just for, it's code related and or, an electric.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't know
Part of the difference is that's criteria for me carrying that plumbing license. And so saying that it meets the same criteria here for people that don't carry a plumbing license, I'm trying to understand what's acceptable for them. And I understand what we're saying, yes, I take classes as well, but I also carry a plumbing license.
And I can say, probably 99% of the classes that we do take towards continuing education would give no education on this, on the matter of.
Kind of why I brought up the example of like,
Right.
sit through a water heater class. I mean,
Yeah, or you go get your CSST certificate, stuff like that. So I don't know continuing education as far as the classes that, and I don't know where you find it. You probably have to find something online to make it more applicable to something like that. I just don't think you're gonna.
That's what I'm saying. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I think we see the Prometric criteria for having this license.
That would help.
Yeah, that would help, yeah.
And I-
And
that-
then
that's
you
what
could write,
You said you would send us, so.
Yeah.
And that would be great.
Because other than that, I would say that the continuing education, that's really just a stipulation that you hold, but it's really not going to do anything for them other than spend 6 hours a year on something that doesn't apply to what they're actually doing.
It'd be helpful.
No, because I need to know What type of classes do you want them to take for continuing?
Well,
ed?
I
I haven't heard that.
we knew.
Yeah, once we
like I said,
look
we
at-
didn't know
once
the
we look
criteria
at-
of license.
Well, then you can help, I'll send you that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Because in a
it.
situation like this, that, I don't know,
It,
who knows if
It's
continuing
really
education
open.
really even needs to be
a criteria.
a criteria, you know? Might just be on the, because if it's not gonna do anything as far as actually laying main extensions and doing that stuff, really just kind of wasting time.
And could be safety working in trenches and tree
Yeah.
routes and plants. and-
Yeah, now you can find those, you can find, or just in general, you know, just the general, like the OSHA
Right.
type classes and stuff like that.
But,
Those would
but
be-
that doesn't lay in the pipe.
No.
That's big in the hole.
Right.
Okay. So,
And that's,
Go ahead.
this is,
Good safety's for everybody. It's not just those digging the hole, it's those in the hole also.
good point. Was that Neil?
does, your policy's gonna include that the plans are engineered and certified and all
He's got that item 5 license.
that, right?
So I'm gonna define what sewer main extension is, get you guys a copy of the prometric testing. And, I'm even gonna I'll ask the question to city attorney about the likelihood of, if she's aware that a policy went from a policy to ordinance, which was what you was asking.
So I know it was. I know it does.
Okay.
I know it can, because we have
Never mind.
several amendments in our plumbing code that at one time were a policy. And over the years, they melt into, this is how we always did it, and it's an amendment. So,
But it's an amendment you approved, correct? I mean, the
except
board.
for the lawn irrigation
Yeah,
and,
That's-
so-
Yeah.
my comment is that I really would like for this to be well-written and tailored to exactly what your intent is. So in 5, 15, or 50 years from now, it is understandable of exactly where it applies. And it is special conditions, special projects where it's just not a sewer or water main service to a commercial industrial building. There's something unique about it to make you consider doing something as an alternative, either materials or workmanship or labors. Yep.
So I guess I got one more other comment. So I know that we said, last time we talked about this, we're kind of jumping off of, is it Johnson County that already has this, right? And they
Well,
have,
similar to this.
and they have, what, did I understand, a 300+ page proposal that,
And I read it after I talked to you guys, I thought it was belly aching about it.
sure.
I went back, and most of it is just,
My concern is that
materials and how to put it in.
my concern is I feel like that we go from a 300 page, I'm just, like, if we're modeling off of something else, like if they've got that much, either they're just overkill and they got that much in it, or we're missing a lot, and we only have,
No.
we can fit everything on a page.
No, that's why I went back and I looked at it. It talks about who owns the property, the materials, how the materials are installed, when to call for inspections, who can call for inspections. So it's their whole inspection thing. And as far as and it talks about, the putting it in an easement. So it has a lot more stuff in it than, I didn't see any stuff in there like what we're discussing, policy. It's just that document, they sent it to me, and like I said, when they sent it to me, it was overwhelming at first, so I just put it off, and then after I said, okay, let me look at this and see what's in it, I started in on it, and it's not it's more procedures on how to do stuff than it is implementing, which is what we're trying to do, is implement. What they're talking about is after it's implemented. It talks about, the bedding, how far down the pipe can go, how much covering you need to have over it, and who can call for an inspection, when they need to call for an inspection, all that type of stuff. It's all in one document. So it wasn't what I thought it was.
So there are no other jurisdictions who have done this.
That I could find. There was, and I say that, and what I did find, and this is what another thing that I found, just like we're talking right now. I found that administrators know what the ordinance says, and that's what needs to be done. But I found out people in the field, the inspectors, are doing something different than what the regulations say.
In this jurisdiction or others?
Other jurisdictions.
Others.
I know in my jurisdiction, my inspectors are doing what their regulations say, Jason. So.
That thumbs up button at.
But I found out that I was talking to one administrator, then I wound up talking to an inspector. An inspector in the field was telling me that they were allowing something to happen that wasn't in the code book. And the administrator told me something different.
So let me ask you just a stupid question. Is there any reason for us to be talking about this? You as the director have the authority to provide alternate directions should you like to do so. And you can even go to the city council and say, hey, for this project at 6101 South whatever street, I want to allow them to install this. Is that acceptable? Right?
I think that a variance would have to come to the board first. Before it.
No.
Only if there's a violation written.
No, it comes to me first.
Right, it comes to you, but I mean, before it went to the council, it needed to go to you, and then the board, and then the council.
Yeah.
Well, just a second. Let's say that you as a city go out and inspect something, write a violation. They can either correct it or they can bring it to the board to appeal that violation, correct? If the board rejects their appeal, they still have another avenue to go to the city council.
No, they changed that. They go straight to
Straight to court?
court. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I misspoke.
And I want to put out there that we did have Mr. Pfeiffer, who responded back. You guys got his?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's pretty adamant that, to me, what I got from his response is, only plumbers can do plumber work. So that's what I got from his.
And I believe the tone I got from Bruce's comment and previous comments was he and others are against an amendment to the city building regulations that allow this wherever and whenever. Is that a fair summary?
I believe it.
I'm sorry?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I don't know that I've heard anyone tell me into my face or in writing that we are against development services formulating a policy for a unique and special project that may come around every 10 years. Is that fair?
No. Primary resistance that I've heard is that this is going to be a free-for-all. So, I mean, if we put restrictions on it, I think it'll be a lot better received by the plumbing community from the people that I've talked with and in my conversations, in my opinion.
You guys agree?
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Joey, thumbs up or not? And Mr. Myers, do you agree with that basic comment?
Yeah, I guess I would agree with that.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion that Neil made that's still on the floor, requesting that Richard make some edits to this policy and present that again for a further review. Anybody second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Sorry, Jeff, I missed some of that. I'm on the road and you guys are in and out.
Okay. Did you hear what we just were talking about at all?
No, it went in and out on me, so I couldn't even give you a thumbs up.
Okay. Well, if you're driving, thank you for not doing that. All right, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is 5. Any against? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for, very nice presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have any other business?
No.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
What did we forget last time?
Oh, about the Hills project on the backflow prevention, where, as what I've heard, they haven't been sending any test reports in.
Well, they weren't required to send the test reports in. They were just required to do the test reports. And
I thought that,
Yeah,
I thought they were
I know.
supposed to let the city know. That way we knew they were being tested.
It's supposed to, I believe it was supposed to be subject to some kind of regular testing.
Yeah, but I don't think the motion had anything with submitting them.
Let me read real quick.
But I guess they haven't submitted anything, so
No.
I guess that's
I'll
what the concern
I'll
is.
talk to Kenny and
Yeah,
see if he can.
and
I think I know about it. They made a lot of changes after the meeting to where the condition really wasn't as present as it was. They kind of got rid of the cross connection altogether. So I don't think that was a concern anymore. We still had the timeline on which they had to complete the project, but that's from what I recollect from talking with Kenny.
Okay, yeah, so I'll read what the meeting minutes, I'm gonna cut through the early stuff of the presentation from Tim Deeker, but after discussion by the board, Jeff Romine moved that the situation may temporarily remain if a letter bearing the stamp of professional licensed engineer is submitted to the city of Topeka stating that the domestic water distribution system is totally separated and properly protected from the processed water system by a high hazard backflow prevention device. In addition, the water quality of the processed water system must be tested on a monthly basis to ensure proper water quality is maintained. Hills will submit a letter to the city acknowledging there is a violation and that the violation will be corrected per the city of Topeka building regulations within 24 months from the date of this bill. It was seconded by Neil, passed 4-0. So that was on January 15 of 2020. They got a year. But Jason's saying that it sounds like they've already made some corrections, so.
so they got,
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the January 20. Did you say 2020 or 2021?
24 months from January 15 of 2020.
so they got one more year.
Yeah, and they made corrections almost right after then. Paul, you could kind of speak a little bit more to that. You were the one that was telling us more about it whenever me and Kenny did our walkthrough.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, and I was a part of that project still when that happened. You know, I know there was corrections made with that, but it's still, I know there were still issues with it in regarding to what Kenny saw. It was really just, we had discussed it, a couple of us discussed it afterwards, and we had talked about it. It was just merely just a follow-up just to make sure and see where that was hanging up. I don't know. I think there's been corrections made. I think maybe it would be fair to even see what those corrections are. And I don't know if we need to get something from Deeker and, you know, and also have we been, you know, if we're doing a monthly test, I mean, would it be fair to ask for that? If it were applicable.
OEC,
I'm not so sure, kind of a recollection is they were doing that anyway. But I don't,
That was part of the presentation, was that Hills has a quality standard that they have to test their water on a monthly or a weekly basis anyhow.
And I do know that there was an issue for that. I do remember for the design, when that whole thing was designed by Deaker and it was put in, there is actual test works put in there, and it was for that very reason, for QC to go through and do those monthly provisions.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
don't have any proof that that's
yeah, and that's what I just.
where it is for the presentation.
Yeah.
It was just very open-ended. We weren't sure where it was.
So in summary, you guys would like to see that Deaker actually submitted the letter saying they're going to fix it or acknowledging the error, and then ask for the test reports from last year.
I think that's fair based upon what we talked about a year ago.
we'll work on that.
I see Wade Ginneman has joined. Wade, we're finishing up. We started at 5, like a contractor, never mind. What was decided, Wade, was this, is that what Richard has developed is only an internal policy for consideration. He asked that the board either approve it, deny it, or table it until some other corrections have been made. That's what the board has done, is ask him to make some further revisions, table the policy at this point. It is not an amendment to the city building regulations. It is for special projects that come to town and that he as a director has the authority to allow them to do certain things. So that's, I think the general consensus was that since this is not an amendment to the city building regulations or the municipal code, that this is just an internal policy. I think there was a lot of relief from those in attendance. And so that's where we sit. I think you got a copy of the revised policy, and I think you were copied on Bruce's comments. So Joey, Wade, if you have some comments that you want to redline to that and forward to Richard or Dave or the city, feel free. Anything else? Did I summarize that quick enough and accurate?
Yeah, I think you did good.
I agree. Wade, do you have any questions, comments?
Well, I'm not sure that I've seen what you're talking about,
Okay. I will send you a copy.
unless it was a very long time ago.
It just came out on the 8th, January 8th. It was Richard's revised one dated 1/8/21.
Yeah, if you could resend that, maybe I have seen it, but I don't recall that.
All right. So from your perspective, from your perspective and from McElroy's perspective, because I know there's been opinion from McElroy's, do you feel more comfortable with this going forward, that it's a internal policy and not an amendment to the building regulations?
I do, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we were making a motion to adjourn. All right, second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.